Holly had had plenty of reasons for ending their marriage, and he understood all of them. He had known for years that their marriage hadn't been working. The spark that had been there in their youth had died a long time ago. Eric had told himself that his schedule was to blame, and that he and Holly would have a chance to fall back in love once he retired. Maybe she had hoped for that too for a while, but the truth they both eventually acknowledged was that they probably never were going to fall back in love. Their best years as a couple were behind them, and it was time to move on. Eric knew their divorce was the best thing for them both. Knowing it didn't make him feel any less lonely, though. His teammates didn't talk to him much for the rest of the game, even during the intermissions in the locker room. They knew he preferred to be left alone for now. Tommy played a hell of a game, stopping all but one of Montreal's shots on goal, but the Admirals still lost by 2 goals in the end. Long after the game had ended and after Coach Murdoch had talked to the team, which included praising Tommy for his efforts, Eric was sitting in his stall, wearing half of his navy Ted Baker suit. The shirt collar was unbuttoned, and his tie hung loose and open around his bent neck. He absently rotated his wedding ring, which he couldn't quite bring himself to stop wearing. "Hey." Eric didn't need to raise his head to know that Scott Hunter had sat himself next to him. "Hi. You doing okay? I mean, besides the game tonight. Anything bothering you?" "Nope. Being freshly divorced and staring down the barrel of my 41st birthday is awesome." "No, just an off game." Scott clapped him on the shoulder. "You'll be back on top in the next game." Eric nodded. He would make sure of it. "You're coming tomorrow night, right?" Scott asked. As much as Eric did not feel like going to an engagement party for Scott and his fiancée Kip, he forced a smile and said, "Definitely. Of course. Can't wait." Scott beamed at him. Scott had been doing a lot of smiling in the past couple of years since he'd fallen in love with Kip Grady. It had been a lonely, closeted life for Scott before he decided to risk it all for a chance at happiness with the man he'd met in a smoothie shop. Eric was one of the first people that Scott had come out to, and Eric didn't take that lightly. He was thrilled for Scott, even if the institution of marriage hadn't been Eric's favorite thing lately. "Good," Scott said, still smiling. "Let's put this game behind us, all right? And we'll all have fun tomorrow night." Eric gave him a wry smile. "Even me?" Scott laughed. "Even you, Benny. I'll make sure of it." Kyle Swift glanced across the table for the millionth time that morning. He couldn't help it. These study dates with Kip were always completely unproductive for him. He spent far more time studying Kip's face than his own notes. Kip was engrossed in something on his laptop, his hazel eyes darting back and forth as he read. He had dark stubble on his cheeks and jaw today, which Kyle liked, even though it made Kip's dimples less noticeable. And oof, Kyle had spent too much of the past couple of years contemplating those dimples. Kip's face turned up, and Kyle quickly dropped his gaze to his own laptop screen. Kyle wasn't sure why he tortured himself like this. Just because he and Kip were both working on their MA degrees in history didn't mean they needed to have these ridiculous study dates. They weren't even going to the same university. Kyle would spend most of their first hour together stealing glances at Kip, and then Kip would get bored and start asking Kyle questions that had nothing to do with their academic pursuits. It was the conversations that always did Kyle in. The easy way they talked to each other and laughed together because they had so many things in common. Because Kip was funny and warm and a total sweetheart. Because he was absolutely perfect for Kyle in all the ways the men Kyle usually dated weren't. Too bad Kip was engaged. "Kyle?" Kyle glanced up and was attacked by one of Kip's cute, dimply smiles. "Hey, there you are. I'm going to get a refill." Kip waved his empty coffee mug in the air. "You want one?" "Actually," Kyle said slowly, "I need to get going." "Oh," Kip frowned. "But I'll see you at the party tonight." Kip's smile returned. "I can't